Hi everyone. Hope you guys can see me, but welcome to the Hanover Adventure Tours Adventure Talk series. Hope you guys are staying warm. I think we pretty much got a pretty heavy snowstorm today, pretty much here at Hanover Adventure Tours. I think we got like 18 inches, so I know some other places might have got a little bit more. But welcome everyone. My name is Jane Traylor. I am going to be hosting the event for the Adventure Talk series. We've had some of these talks now for the last couple of weeks, and they're every Thursday at 6 p.m. and they've been going well. We mostly focus on different talks pertaining to trails like the Colorado Trail or the Appalachian Trail. And for tonight, we'll be talking about the Upper Valley Trails. And we have Randy Richardson joining us tonight, who is the Development Director for the Upper Valley Trails Alliance. We're really happy to have him here tonight. But before we start that, I'd love to explain a little bit about us here at Hanover Adventure Tours. So we are a newly developed company, been here now for a year, and we're located right on the Connecticut River. We work towards pretty much being the adventure center or hub of the Upper Valley. And what do we mean by that? So we here in our building, we have over 10 different models of electric bikes. And we provide rentals of all the different models, as well as you're able to purchase any of the bikes. And you can kind of try out anything, but also we want to focus on the experiential components. So anytime you come here and you take out one of our e-bikes, you have over 70 different pre-planned routes to kind of explore the Upper Valley and take the roads less traveled. You can stop at certain points of interest, local businesses, local farms. And you're definitely going to see some places you may have not seen before. Other things we do here as well is we have tours, Hanover Adventure Tours. And so we provide electric bike tours as well as private coach tours. And you have the option to taste the Upper Valley by going on a brewery and distillery tour. Or you can learn a little bit about the Vermont traditions on one of our Woodstock farmland tours, or even get some history for our Dartmouth historical tour. So a lot of different options there. And one thing I mentioned is we are right along the Connecticut River. And it's pretty exciting. We're in the process of getting a dock right out front. And what that means is there's going to be options for renting paddle boards and canoes and kayaks and tubing, or just going for a quick swim. So really, we work towards being that adventure center. And like I said, we had a huge winter little wonderland, or just a drop of snow today. And we do try to work towards all seasons. So we have fat e-biking where you can go on a pre-planned route, or snowshoeing. So it's all there. We're working towards all that, and even have a hostel on the other side of the Adventure Center where we house Appalachian Trail hikers through the season. We have about 28 beds here, and we really love being part of that community. And so kind of going through the community, that's something we truly want to be part of. From some of our routes always go to certain local businesses, and we work towards being part of the community in any way. And that's why we're so happy to have Randy join us tonight to talk about the Upper Valley Trails Alliance, and also how being outdoors and kind of learning how you can work on your physical and mental health through some of the trails here in the Upper Valley, and how there's actually so much to choose from. So we are so excited to have him join us tonight, and I'm gonna bring him on in a second, but I'd also want to show you guys a few things on the screen you may see. So this is a discussion. We would love to be interactive in any way. And so Randy's going to definitely have a presentation for all of you, but also there will be a question and answer, a Q&A at the end of this. And if you look at the lower hand of your screen, you're going to see a couple of things there. The first thing you'll see is a place that you can raise your hand. you can definitely raise your hand, and we'll definitely get to you and kind of see if you have a question or something. Also, there is a chat where everyone can hear something you may want to say to the crowd, but also there is an option for Q&A. So if you click on that, there will be an option for you to ask a question. And at the end of the presentation, both Randy and I will kind of go through some of those questions and answer anything you may have. So those options are there for you guys. But other than that, I am definitely going to bring Randy on right now. Would love for him to come on in and we can get our talk together. Hey, Randy, can you hear us? Me?
Hi there. Yes, thank you, Jane. Can you hear me too?
I can hear you. Awesome. Well,
great. I hope everybody can hear me.
They probably can. But Randy, so happy to have you here tonight. Really excited to kind of learn a little bit more about the Upper Valley, and yeah.
All right, with that, I'll get started. First of all, thank you everybody for taking time out during a busy holiday period and a snowstorm. If you're like me, I spent, I think, about half my day clearing snow, but I also spent about an hour in the woods because being able to hit snowshoes with really needing snowshoes in the Upper Valley is not that common. So this was one of those days where you definitely needed it. I had to cut the trail to get my dogs to be able to.
Hi guys. I think he might have lost connection. I hope you guys can hear me. You know how it is in the Upper Valley, you can definitely lose some connection. So if you can just bear with us for a second, he should be able to get back on. But oh well, that was the first time that's happened here. But I know we all hope to get, I think it's EC fiber or something, because some of the locations here in the Upper Valley definitely can get a little difficult. So please bear with us and make sure we can get it going. What's weird is, I can't see you guys. All I can do is see myself and pretty much kind of be in the middle of it and hopefully, have him come on and make sure it's all there. But interesting enough. I hope you guys are doing okay. For here at Hanover Adventure Tours, we were pretty much snow plowing all day today. Even took out one of the tape recorders and not the tape, but like a tape measure to see how far we've done here. And hey, you guys can ask any questions while we're waiting too. Jane, you're doing great. How can we see the 70 trails? Well, so we pretty much have all the trails here, and usually when you come by to Hanover Adventure Tours and go on a rental, you can choose any of the 70 trails. But if you have even purchased a bike, we would be more than happy to come by and tell us what you're looking for, and we can give you a printed routed map as well. Hey, Randy.
Sorry about that. Apparently, the snowstorm has also affected my Wi-Fi. But I should be good now. I had a different place, as you can see my background. So I'm very sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. We had questions, so it was good. Go ahead though.
Okay, so I'll start off by just saying again that I've been involved with trails since I was very young, but I spent most of my career as a teacher and then an educational administrator, and then for a variety of reasons needed to take time off and decided that I wanted to, and I'll explain that a little bit more during the presentation, but I credit trails with literally saving my life. And so I am, as I will discuss a little bit, pretty evangelical about this. But I'm going to start by sharing a screen, and then I'll start the presentation. And I'm hoping we can, as Jane said, have a dialogue at the end, but I'll get this started right now.
All right, well, other than that, then I am going to kind of shut off my camera for a bit and give you time to kind of present, okay? So you guys will see me a little bit later, and
Okay.
I'm excited for the event. All right.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Thank you. Okay, so a big part of what we're going to focus on more than anything is just trying to give a combination of two things, which is trails as a necessity and something that I think is really hitting home right about now, especially during the pandemic. So I'm probably preaching to the choir, but I also feel strongly about passing on that message. And then also, so that's the now more than ever part of it. And also that we're going to be trying to help you find your path and find our path. And I'll explain that in a little more depth, but partly through an online resource that we have called Trail Finder. So probably, my guess is some of you have probably seen this quote before from Edward Abbey, but I just love it. And it definitely hits home and is a big part of the message that I'm trying to deliver. The idea that wilderness is definitely not a luxury, but a necessity of the human spirit. And there's actually growing research to say that this is true as well. As I said, full disclosure is that this is definitely evangelism. I feel so strongly I'm trying to spread the word as much as possible. It's why I work for the Upper Valley Trails Alliance. We believe, and as a broader sense, I very firmly believe that getting outdoors and being a part of outdoor recreation is good for all of us, our health, our communities. And daily outdoor exercise, ideally, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes, but hopefully for much longer, it can be really a positively transformative daily practice. So a big part of what we want to try and do is make sure everybody gets outside and everybody has access to getting outside and on trails. So the overview is just a little bit more about UVTA, about the Upper Valley Trails Alliance, that we are an alliance and that we need you and partnerships and alliance. There's only 4 of us who work for the Upper Valley Trails Alliance. So a big part of what we're trying to do is connect with others and form partnerships, which is why something like this is exciting to us. When we have opportunities to share and get involved, we do that. I'm going to talk a little bit about inspiration, about COVID as being an inspiration for more of us getting outside and also personally, and hopefully that inspires others as well. And then some of the benefits for getting outdoors and on the trails. And then finally, we'll explore a little bit and I'll show you Trail Finder and just some of what can help you find hopefully local trails and see options that are out there. So we have sort of 4 major areas that we're working on as the Trails Alliance, and a big part of it is for us equitable access, so equitable public access to trails. So we're trying to get as much as possible, get people outdoors, but we want everybody to be able to. It's often that that in wealthier communities there's more access to trails and more money towards trails. We're trying to make sure they get out there. So we build and maintain publicly and only publicly accessible trails. And we also, as we alerted to, related to this idea of equitable access, is making sure that everybody can find it, which is why we want to have online maps and easy access through Trail Finder. Then we also believe very strongly that trails help inspire conservation, and we're very focused on sustainability. So we plan and maintain sustainable trails, which trail building, it's very important that we do it right and that the trails last, and also that we're doing it with minimum impact and planning carefully as we create the trails. And we also are trying to inspire conservation through getting people outdoors, and particularly our Upper Valley High School Trail Corps. And for anybody who knows or has teenagers, we are looking for, we're actually recruiting right now for next summer, and would love to have people applying for that program. And then economic development, which is something people maybe don't think as much about with trails, but there's huge evidence that this is one of the most important drivers of the economies of both New Hampshire and Vermont. And there's growing unity around this, both from trail groups like ours and also business groups. And this is an example. This partnership is the kind of thing where we're trying to both inspire people to get outdoors for health and other reasons, but also because it makes our community stronger, including economically. So we're trying to foster, get people involved, make sure that they can find trails, including visitors, and getting more people to come to rural areas and help our economies grow. And then physical and mental health, which is a huge part of why we're always encouraging people to get outside and on trails. And we want to foster that connection to nature from a mental health perspective. We want to make sure everybody has those public pathways. And one of the ways we do that is through a program called Passport to Winter Fun. Some of you may have had, if you're from the Upper Valley, you may have had kids who've been involved with the program. We've now had literally tens of thousands of students of some of our elementary school students who have gone through the program, and that will be starting up soon. So this is just to give you a quick sort of sense of an overview. This is the map of what we call the Upper Valley. Different people will call it different things, but it involves 43 towns for us. And this is the areas that we're looking on. You can see that the stars, the red stars, are trail projects that we worked on in the last year. In some way, the triangles, the green ones, are passport schools where we have our passport program, and then home schools are blue triangles. So these are all that we try and, for a small organization, we try and spread our influence as wide as possible. You can see it's a little centered towards Norwich where we're based, but we're trying to spread the wealth as much as we can. And then these are just some of the trails that we worked on this year, as you see around the map. And we're especially excited about the idea that we're trying to get more accessible trails. So you can see we built accessible, meaning also for wheelchairs at the Monshire Museum. And then in Woodstock, there's a relatively flat trail that we're excited about. So it's not fully accessible, but it's more walkable and accessible to more people. And then these are some construction in terms of building things with stone and wood structures. And you can see that both in the two bottom corners, those are high school trail corps kids that helped to do that construction. So moving from Upper Valley Trails Alliance to inspiration. So I discovered this word not that many years ago and decided that it kind of fit to the way I like to think of myself, although it may be a little bit strange, but nemophilist, a hunter of the woods, one who loves the forest and its beauty and its solitude, although I also like being there with other people. But solitude is something that we have to do around this time with COVID. And speaking of COVID, I wanted to just say that this is both the good and bad of the pandemic, that it's created huge challenges. We weren't sure we could even do our work when it first came in, and I think that was true for almost everybody. We were very scared about whether we could run our high school trail corps program. It actually canceled all of our events that we do, fundraising events, so we lost a lot of income that way. But it also came with tremendous opportunities. So while we've had less freedom, less ability to travel further afield to try different trails, more restrictions, and disconnected from groups, we've also had a growing awareness of the outdoors and the importance of the connection to the outdoors, especially during this time, sort of a reconnection to that, I think, and to nature. And then the focus on nearby and local and really appreciating what's here instead of always feeling like we have to go somewhere else, so we can save gas and have lower impact and be able to do that. And just this was, some of you may have seen this. This was a recent article that was in Vermont Digger, talked about this study from the University of Vermont. Over 3,000 participants were involved, and they did an extensive questionnaire to look at how people might have changed their attitudes, or how they might report that they changed their attitudes about outdoor and outdoor activities. So you can see the amount of increase that people were reporting during the pandemic, and it's very significant. We also saw this with Trail Finder. We had as much as 150% increase compared to the year before of people looking for trails on Trail Finder. And in fact, went from 20,000 people visiting the site per month to over 40,000 over the course of the last several months. And then it also talked about a shift in why we value nature and being outdoors. So you can see that mental health and well-being is up 60%. Exercise, appreciation of nature, that sense of identity and who we are. So it seems to be having a big effect, and hopefully we can carry some of the positive aspects of this onward. For me personally, I mentioned this a little bit before, but what happened was my mom got sick when I was running a school actually in Pike, New Hampshire, and I offered to give her my kidney. It ended up that we found out that I, in fact, had cancer when I was going through a screening process. So she really inspired me and is the person who got me to be outdoors and hike some of my very first hikes. But then the fact that I was sick and that she was sick, we spent a lot of time together outside. And then I became obsessively focused on getting healthy. I took some time off from work, ended up leaving education and leadership in education so I could have more time to spend with both my parents. And I started obsessively hiking throughout the Upper Valley, especially on the AT and all around where I live in Woodstock. So, and I went from being very out of shape to getting in shape and being much stronger, both emotionally and physically. So I credit trails literally with saving my life, and I've been cancer-free for a long time. So I came to believe this quote from Finis Mitchell: "We don't stop hiking because we get old, and we get old because we stop hiking." I have found that that's been true for me in the way I think about being outdoors. And I just love it. I love the way it changes and the things that we can see. So these are just some of the views that I get at different times a year. This is Mount Tom, very close to my house on one morning. This is the blood moon on Mount Tom from the South Peak. And this is camping on my birthday in May on the near Mount Liberty when I was climbing over the top to find my campsite. So part of what I hope everybody, and I hope everybody who's on the talk, someone who's getting outdoors, and if you're not, that you think about how you can, and that it doesn't have to be the coolest, best place. It's the place that's nearby. That we want you to foster your own motivation, your own reason for being outdoors, and just find a way to make it a daily practice. If it's a walk down the sidewalk, it's a walk down the sidewalk. Hopefully it's more. So the benefits to help inspire that motivation, hopefully physical and the mental, spiritual side. So this is from Canadian Medical Association Journal in terms of some of the research. There are different stats that can be brought forward, but it's just the idea of sort of daily physical activity and how it can change your health. And there's evidence that it can literally extend your life, and there's lots of evidence for that, but exactly how much and what percentages, but you can see some of the different factors that people talk about and how it can change your life and change your health. The National Institute of Health exercise guidelines, so hopefully you can see it's very small to make a pretty big difference, but you can see even just an hour a week, 2.5 hours a week of moderate, 5 hours a week, major benefits. And again, there's data on how significant these are, but they're very significant. And just a rule of thumb generally is that that 1 minute of vigorous activity, so if you're climbing something a little steeper, is going to give you more benefit, almost twice the benefit. So I'm someone who would say it doesn't matter how rigorous it is, but it's great if you can combine both of those at different times and you get even more benefit that way. Also just the benefits of hiking and just various outdoor activities, but just versus walking on just a flat area, that you get flexibility, strength, balance, things that especially as we get older, that you can start to lose some of those things. And if you're on uneven terrain and sort of having to hop some rocks every once in a while, that can make a big difference in your health over the long run, never mind the connection with nature. So from a mental health perspective, there has been some research, and there's more and more that's been done lately. That's part of what that Vermont study was as well, although it was focused on COVID. But there was a Stanford study that was done not that long ago that just compared 90 minutes in a natural area versus 90 minutes in a more urban, literally street versus park. It wasn't even fully in the woods. And they noticed a decreased activity, and this was based on literal brain scans of the region of the brain associated with a key indicator of depression. And there's lots of urban and rural differences, but also more studies that have been shown that this feeling that we have, that's the impression that people are reporting from the COVID study, is very true. So those benefits, mental, emotional, and spiritual. It's also being able to get outside and really notice. So I was telling Jane when we first met and started talking about doing this idea of forest bathing. Some of you may have heard of it, the Shirin-yoku, that there have been studies pretty extensively done in Japan about this on how it can affect your overall health, including your mental health. And there are tremendous benefits from literally even just going out and sitting in the woods. Never mind hiking and being physically active. And I just encourage people to really go outside and observe. So these are some of my various hikes, but finding natural and human history. This is a beautiful large stone foundation on the left, and it's a beautiful tree. Also, some of you may know that in local and Trescott lands, there's some historical markers even out in the woods that you can find, and there's more information on there. The Hanover Poor Farm that some people didn't even realize was there. And the Hanover Conservancy often tries to match up with historical information as well, so that you can know what you're seeing in the woods. And I just really encourage people to stop, observe, photograph, share that information back with family, get them excited about getting outdoors as well. And then just finding unexpected beauty, things that might, this is part of the forest bathing concept too, in some Japanese senses of you can find things that might be feeling like they're falling apart that are actually beautiful as well. And then the way that trails, I often hike the same trails. There's lots of research that shows that we probably do about 90% of our outdoor activity within 5 miles of our house. And that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. And it's just, you can see changes all the time. Trails just change, the outdoors changes, and just to keep an eye out and capture it. And then share it so we can motivate others to get out there too. This was actually last year, finding there was a pretty active bear on Mount Tom. And so I was lucky enough to find a track and actually to see the bear on 3 different occasions as well. And part of what I do to try and motivate people, my son is now can outpace me, but he had gotten out of shape and wasn't really excited about it. So part of the way we got motivation was we took these hammocks with us that are easy to pack into a pack and then have quick straps that go around trees. We would hike about 2 miles, set them up and just relax and then hike back. And it was a way of sort of getting a longer hike in, but relaxing in between. And then these are, this isn't a time where we can necessarily, if we're following the guidelines, hike with a bunch of other people, but we actually, these are people who helped build a trail from Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth. And then we just connected well. And so we did a hike together on Mount Cardigan. They were a little underdressed. And then this is a friend of mine hiking on Mount Tom nearby. And then we do trail work. So I mentioned before, but we have volunteer opportunities. This was a combination, but it was a volunteer bridge building on Slade Brook, not far from Hanover. And then this was just an example. I regularly go out and I help train others to do this too, including the teenagers we work with. But this is a blowdown on the AT. The tools I used, and then the before and after. So next, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to Trailfinder if you haven't seen it, and explain a little bit about what it is, and I'll just quickly show you how it works. So one thing I want you to know, and many of you may already know this, but a lot of times I think people don't have a full appreciation that over 80%, roughly somewhere between 70, that may be a little bit of an exaggeration, but somewhere between 70 and 80% of all the land in Vermont and New Hampshire is privately owned. So that makes most of our trail access dependent on the goodwill of our landowners. So most public trails are on private lands, and many of those trails are not protected permanently. So that means that the way we treat them and the way we support our landowners and have a mutually beneficial experience is absolutely vital to keeping them open. And when you're looking for a trail, we ask you to be thinking about who provides the resources and what the best trail resources are. It's not necessarily true that Trail Finder is the best for everything, but we think it's got significant benefits, and we hope that you think about that. We don't make money off of Trail Finder. In fact, we have to raise money to make Trail Finder possible because it's totally free to the people that put the trails up and anybody who uses it. We want you to think about the fact that nature and beauty are always close by, that the best trail is the trail that you use. So it doesn't have to be the cool 4,000 footer. If you like to do that, that's great, but it doesn't have to be that. It's just one that you are going to use, and closer is usually going to be used more. We ask, and this is part of what we do, that you're skeptical about rankings, ratings, and times, because ratings of trails, again, the best trail can be the one that's closest to the most beautiful thing you might ever see, might be on a trail close to you. There's one of the real problems with trail rankings that some of the other sort of more data dumped and crowdsourced sites is that by doing that, everybody tends to go to the same 10 trails. These are the 10 best trails in the upper valleys. That's not good for the trails, and it's not necessarily good for people in terms of encouraging to use trails, because they think they have to go to the cool trail, and they really don't. They just have to get outside and get active. We want you to think about the idea that you're the center of the map and find the things that are close by. And particularly now during COVID period, the recommendation is you stay closer. Some exercise, some outdoor activity is better than none, even if it's literally walking down your street. And it starts with the first step. So finding a trail, I'm just going to step out of this for a second and bring up Trail Finder. So 1 second here. Okay, so this is Trail Finder, and what I want to show you is just that again, this idea that you're the center of the map, so you can scroll in or scroll out on this map, and that's one way of searching. So again, Trail Finder is free public access. You can sign in, but you can also just use it. And we're not capturing information and doing anything with it. But it's a way, if you join, then you can also do things like post photos and other kinds of things on the site. So this allows you to just, again, scroll in. You can find Hanover and look for trails specifically in Hanover. You can see the blue dot is where you are, and that will always show up when you're on the site, or when you have it on your phone, or when you're on your computer. And then you're looking for trails. So I'm in Woodstock right now, and then you can look for trails in other areas, and you can literally just click down and go in and look for a specific trail or something that you want to look at within the map. So you just find where you are, and then you want to find something that's close by. You can see this Upper Valley Loop is actually a biking loop that the Trails Alliance helped create, mostly on the roads. Norwich Nature Area Trails, the Heil Trail, King Arthur Trail. And then I also just want you to see the different ways that you can actually, that you can find trails and the different search options. So you can search by activity: walking, hiking, mountain biking, snowshoeing. There are some that there are many more of than others, frankly. We tend to be fairly heavy in hiking area. There's less biking and mountain biking, partly because we find that there are a couple of resources out there that have been very much taken up by the mountain biking community. Then you can also choose by difficulty level. And then you can also choose the distance. So you can see there's a slider. So you can just decide, I definitely don't want to do a longer hike, even though you can usually go out and back on any hike. So you might want to try and do your search wider and then just go a shorter distance if you choose to go on that hike. And then you can choose popular different kinds of searches. So family friendly, pet friendly. So you know that you can have pets out there, and you do want to make sure you really note whether or not you can have your dogs on a leash or off a leash. And then you can search by keyword. And then you can see you can also search by town. So you can just find your town and find the ones that are closest. And then you can choose how close by you want to actually find that, that trail. And then you can open or close. So it is possible that some trails will be closed. For example, the one that I'm going to search in right now is one that sometimes gets closed. Some of you may have hiked this, but it's Guile Mountain. Guile Mountain is one of the most popular trails in the Upper Valley. We don't know exactly, but there are well over 10,000 visitors a year, sometimes many more than that from what we can tell. And so Guile Mountain sometimes gets closed, partly because it gets overdone, but especially during mud season, because it's a dirt road to get access there, and it can get overrun with parking. So once you go in, I hope everybody saw, you just click on the trail and it opens up and gives you more information about the trail. So you can get the kind of activities. You can see that it's hiking and biking, mountain biking in this case, the distance of this particular trail, the difficulty and again, this is all done by the trail manager in terms of what they've put up. The town, etc., surface, what you're going to find. And then you can see pets are permitted, but only on a leash. And then you have a bunch of different information down here below. So you can see one of the things that we've recently put up, and this is partly because of COVID, that we want people to be very aware of, is that this is a high use trail. And then it talks about when the times where it's more likely to be used. And then it gives you a description of the trail. And then you can see we've got weather. Also, if you're interested in geocaching. And then you can also see that you can actually download if you want to, if you're the kind of person who likes to do GIS stuff, you want to download it and get it, you can get the KML or the GPX for different kinds of devices that you might want to put the map on. And you can also see it if you do KML, for example, you can see it on Google Earth. And then it tells you who the trail manager is and how to contact them. In this case, it's the Norwich Trails Committee. And then you can see you've got the actual trail map. And then I just want to show you that in this particular case, and there are some trails that aren't like this and some are, you've got features that you can turn off and turn on if things are, like if there are a lot of parking areas or trailheads, you can turn those off. But then uses, in this case, you can see that hiking is almost the whole trail. And then mountain biking is not the whole trail. So it shows you the places where you can hike and where you can mountain bike on this trail. And then you can see there's this section where you can comment and add a comment if you're interested in doing that. And then you can see there are a number of photos of Guile Mountain. Guile Mountain, one of the reasons it's so popular is because it's got this fire tower that people can get an incredible view for the immediate area around Norwich and Hanover. And then you can see that view. And the Upper Valley Trails Alliance is actually part of, and this is a big part of the alliance-based thing, working with Norwich, getting grants, working with other organizations as well. We built the trail. It was a trail that had to be on that spot to get up to that tower. It was being heavily overused and it was actually washing away, so it had a sustainability and conservation issue. And so the decision was made to turn it into stone steps. And so now there are over 350 stone steps on Guile Mountain. It was a multi-year process to build it. And you can see it's absolutely beautiful. And this is, it was actually part of the way it was done to decrease the environmental impact during the construction process was with a horse team to help carry some of the materials. And again, these are just various photos that have been uploaded. And then something that's a relatively new feature that I was talking to Jane about that that Hanover, you folks may want to do as well, which is that we are putting trailside services, and this is part of that economic development idea. So these are, if any business in the area that is relatively nearby a trail can put themselves up, and people can find things that might be close and resources that they might be interested in visiting, places to go. So I did also just want to show one other thing, and that is that there have been, there's a lot of talk about the best ways to be out on trails, and there are guidelines both from New Hampshire and Vermont, but we put together a series of guidelines for the COVID period. I think people have been very good about this in this area, but just wanted to make sure that people are aware. There are also many other resources on the Trail Finder website, but I didn't want to go into too much depth on the different things. I wanted to provide an opportunity for people to see it, get an overview, and then ask questions. So with that, I will just finish up. Okay, so
Are you all set, Randy?
yes, thank you, Jane.
Awesome, awesome. Well, hey, that was great. I see. Oh, sharing screen. Okay.
No, sorry. That's good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. A few technical glitches. Sorry about that, folks. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy we were able to kind of figure that out. I always get nervous of the Wi-Fi, to tell you the truth, just because wherever we are in the Upper Valley, I just don't know.
Yeah. Thanks for your patience, everybody. That was yeah. We actually had Wi-Fi go down, and well, actually a bunch of stuff go down in the whole area here in Woodstock. So thanks.
Yeah. Well, I will say thank you so much for that presentation. I felt like it went into key points of just, how one step, just a short hike, can do so much for someone. And I think seeing those statistics of just how just something so small can do such a big impact, I think is really important. I also love seeing some of the pictures that you had too. I mean, those were beautiful, honestly. And I would completely agree with how the seasons really can change a trail drastically in my eyes, just because I've done multiple hikes and seen them throughout the seasons, and it is beautiful, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. And then also just Trail Finder overall, I think that is awesome. I see someone has actually asked a few questions. So first off, is Trail Finder a website or an app?
Okay, thank you for asking that. We are not an app. It is a website. It can be used on your phone, and it is, as I said, you can download the tracks and you can put them on various devices. In most cases, you can, if you prepare ahead of time and you've got it on your phone, then you'll be able to see your blue dot and see where you are on the map. But it's usually not a bad idea to download a map as well with you, but it's not an app. And part of the reason it's not an app is because Trail Finder is done in a way that we think it can be most accessible, and that's partly affordability. And frankly, to go into the high tech of also having an app, it's very expensive to develop and then expensive to maintain.
Mm-hmm. I will say too, something that, being technical with my phone, there's a way that through a web browser, you can add the page as a home screen, and then
Right.
kind of have it look like an app, but it goes right to the web browser, which I thought was cool.
Exactly. And there are also many different GPS kinds of apps that are available where you can actually download the Trail Finder map into one of those apps as well. So there are a variety of ways to do it, but I find in most cases I don't need to. I can just pull it up where I am, and it works fine. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Robert Chambers was saying he was so excited to learn on Daybreak this morning about the new trails on the Kettebick. Is it Kettebick? Am I saying the wrong?
I think it probably is supposed to be Connecticut, but I'm not sure.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
I was thinking of a different river in Maine. But yeah, the Connecticut River in Lebanon, New Hampshire. Can you tell us a little bit about this trail?
Yeah, there are a number of different trails in Lebanon, so I'm not sure if I know the specific one you're thinking of, Robert. But it is true that we're in the process of working with a variety of folks in Lebanon. The Muskogee River Greenway was one of the efforts that we helped to pull together, and is now an incredible local resource. And thankfully, with the new development that's going up in Lebanon, they are also excited about developing trails. And so we have been meeting with them, and the plan is there already are trails throughout that development, and to be able to tie together, hopefully along the river, as you said. Or I think this is what you're referring to. And actually our Upper Valley High School Trail Corps will be helping to build and improve those trails this summer, and then get all of those up on Trail Finder so they are easy to find and fully accessible.
Wow, that's exciting. And let's see. I see here, please say again the website for Trail Finder. So that is it Trail Finder?
Well, which I didn't do, but I'll tell you that there are two ways. One is going through our website, which is the Upper Valley Trails Alliance website. So that's uvtrails.org. So uvtrails.org is one way to find it. The other way to find it is trailfinder.info. And so it's a .info, and that's the only thing that's important to be able. If you also look it up in Google, it's the first thing that comes up when you put up Trail Finder, so you can find it that way as well. But trailfinder.info is the easiest way.
Okay, great. Just writing on those back. Let's see. Eric Hobby asked, "Is there volunteer opportunity for kids?"
Yes. So we have volunteer events that come up on a pretty regular basis, and so it's either helping with one of our events, and so we have a variety throughout the year. Unfortunately, as everybody knows, this year we did not have those events, but we have the Tour de Taste, which is a biking and eating. It's one of the few biking events where you can actually gain weight if you choose to do that. But that's an opportunity to be able to get involved. But also we are building trails, and so kids can get out and do that. But the two most kid-oriented things where we're trying to get kids engaged and involved is the Passport to Winter Fun, which is for elementary school kids. And so check to see if it's available in your school. Even if it's not, it's something where kids can. It's an incentive-based program, motivational, to try and get kids active and engaged outdoors during the course of the winter. So that's one way to do it. The other one is the Upper Valley High School Trail Corps, and the Trail Corps that's for rising 8th graders and then through high school, and it's a wonderful opportunity. It's very different from some of the other the Trail Corps for teenagers, because instead of it being a super intensive month-long or all summer kind of experience, it's only a 1 week. So it's a chance to get your feet wet, get a sense of what it's like, learn how to build trails, learn how to do that work, have a little fun while you're doing it, and then not get overwhelmed. So that's the High School Trail Corps. And again, Passport to Winter Fun, but also just to keep an eye out on the website, looking for, it's a great way to be able to look for information out there and find out other kinds of volunteer activities. Obviously, there's not a lot of trail building going on during the winter, so this is more an opportunity for you to get out and hike on the trails.
That was great. Thank you for that too. And I'm typing all of these so anyone can look over the answered Q&As and see what might be happening. How often does the Upper Valley Trails Alliance actually build out trails? Does it depend on the year, or?
No, well, I mean, a lot of times, most trail work, I think it's not building new trails, although we have done quite a bit of that over the last several years. but we're very aware of not necessarily adding trails, but improving the trails that exist now and maintaining them. And people probably realize, but as I showed the blowdown we have a beautiful local trail here in Woodstock called the Faulkner Trail. That's also one that's very accessible compared to other trails. And that has a lot of drainage work that needs to be done every year. It's not necessarily the most fun, exciting kind of trail work, but it's absolutely essential. So there's a fair amount of that, but we are usually working on somewhere around 50 to 75 miles of trail a year. And we're usually, those trail projects, it's anywhere from usually 10 to 20 different trail projects that we're working on, sometimes even more. So. Yeah.
That's amazing, honestly. And what is it? I want to call it a bunker, but it's not. But if people always use the most favorited trail, they really start to build, like.
Yeah, basically what happens, it creates a gully. So a lot of the trails in this area, the way they've been built is that it's usually to try and get from point A, which is sort of what happened with Guile, to get to the highest point as quickly as possible. And that usually means that a lot of times they were built on drainage routes and even sometimes what were essentially little streams. And when that happens, it's a very significant problem because it causes washout and erosion. And so part of what we do when we can is we reroute. In the case of Guile, we actually put the stone steps in to try and maintain the trail. But you're right, overuse, but usually that means a combination of overuse and probably not designed as well as it should be. So that's an example where you might reroute a trail. It may be that trail has to be in that location. It's the only place it can be because of the property line or whatever. But whenever possible, we will redesign it if we can and change it. I also see the question about Trailfinder website. And again, it's trailfinder.info is the actual direct site, or uvtrails.org. And so those are the two ways to get in there. But again, if you Google it, it'll come right to the top.
Yeah, and I am typing this as well, so you will be able to find that. And also what I will do is after this presentation, I will send out an email. This presentation is recorded and there is like a YouTube channel, so that will be sent out. And I'll also send out just the link to get and see Trailfinder as well, and just the Upper Valley Trails Alliance.
And I see the Is Trail Core an overnight program, and it's not, and that's one of the it's a pro and con. So if you happen to be a family who's trying to send your kids away for a little while for whatever combination of reasons, then we're not that program. There are programs like that around, and so you can look for those, and they're a series of really good high school programs. But we are trying to keep this local and keep it something that kids can go to, that families can keep their kids at home. And it's really to try and break into this kind of, it's like a first job, sort of a combination summer camp, first job. It's week long. So the kids get dropped off in the morning and they get picked up late afternoon around 4 o'clock. And we spend a day out in the woods. And we actually, throughout the week, we try and have them have an experience on 5 different trails that we're working on. So we rotate through so they get to really get an overview and experience on different kinds of trails throughout the Upper Valley. And that's what we're trying to do, but it's definitely not an overnight program. Part of what made it possible for us to keep it going during the COVID period. So we actually even expanded our program last year from 4 weeks to 5 weeks. And we were able to do that because we could actually have, we gave people the option of traveling with us with the combination to the degree that we could, social distance and all masked, and then also having families even drop kids off right at the sites and then pick up at the end of the day. But we had one of our most productive years and safe all the way through this summer. So.
Wow. And you just go all around the Upper Valley, of course, and it depends.
Right. So again, we will have between 5 and 10 different trail projects that we're working on. So everything from Trescott Water Supply Lands in Hanover, which has a great trail network right locally nearby that has been getting built up as basically a Hanover kind of city park and a wonderful resource for the community. To this Woodstock Trail that students came out and helped build. We built over 150 feet of bog bridges in Woodstock, and a beautiful new set of steps to make it possible to make that more accessible, and actually a ramp as well. And so the kids bounced around to different places and got to see it. As far as the email and newsletter, yes, if you go on to our website at uvtrails.org, you can sign up for the newsletter, and there's a contact and also about the Trails Alliance button, and you can jump on. And we'd love to. Ideally, I will be very transparent in saying we are hoping that people will become members, and membership, it's not required. You can get virtually all the benefits, but if you become a member, you also have access to discounts for our events and those kind of things, but also you have access to our tool lending shed, where we have literally tens of thousands of dollars worth of trail tools that you can borrow and use to help work on your own trails, or even in your garden. Frankly, they're some of the best tools that are out there. We want people to be a part of community and to be investing in trails and to be helping to spread the word and evangelize, as I discussed earlier as well.
Also to be part of the community, yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm typing as we answer this question.
No problem.
One question I had, and maybe this is just, I'm just not even sure. What's geocaching? I know I saw that on the Trail Finder app, and love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so it's there's a whole geocaching community. It's not something that I tend to do, but basically what it is, it's like being an investigator. So what you're doing is you're using GPS and your outdoor excursions to find. Usually it's in a small box. Sometimes it's in a bag, and it'll be hidden at the base of a tree or inside a stump, or behind some area. And so what you're trying to explore, learn how to use GPS stuff, and find out how to find your way using maps, and it's sort of got that investigation component to it, and people will go around and find it. And there will be geocache opportunities all over the country. Actually, you can find those. Some people absolutely love it. So,
it's like a big scavenger hunt.
Exactly. Yep,
fun.
That's right. That's right.
That's interesting. That is. And then one thing I really liked when you were kind of showing us Guile Mountain was, of course, there was a lot of different things you could see from just like the pictures and the description, but also the trail manager and knowing who actually maintains the trail. Because honestly, sometimes we might walk on a trail and you see a tree down and you don't really know what to do. I mean, some people are going to go get their chainsaw, but some other people are just going to be like, I don't know if I should do, what can we do? So I think that's a really good option to have that resource there.
Yeah, it's the key thing, the real difference between Trail Finder and a bunch of the other trail resources out there is that we only have put trails on that are fully approved, and the trail descriptions are approved, the guidelines are approved, everything about it's approved. A lot of the other websites out there and resources out there will actually just dump in whatever, and they're often crowdsourced. And so there are a number of illegal trails or semi-private trails or trails that people don't want to be put on, or in state parks there are rogue trails that people have built, and we want to make sure that we're not doing any of that. Again, that has a lot to do with the landowner component in New Hampshire and Vermont. The real distinction between Vermont and New Hampshire as compared to a place like Colorado, for example, is that most of the trails in Colorado would be on public land. And so it's a very different experience. The trail manager is obviously a government of some kind. It's managed very differently, and there's a lot that's taken for granted in that kind of setting, but we can't take any of that for granted. And I think that's a good thing in a lot of ways, but it does create its own set of challenges, and it's incredibly important that we are supportive of our landowners, sensitive to the land, and doing the right thing. So Trail Finder was really designed partly to make sure that we know that all of the trails are approved and supported by the people who are both managing them and own the property.
Yeah, I think that's a core value, honestly, because I think when you see a trail, you think to yourself, oh, well, if I see it, like, oh, I can go on it, I can do whatever it is, but really you don't know that. And I think knowing that when I go onto the Trail Finder app, I know, or not app, sorry, website, like I know that I can definitely go on this trail, no problem. And there's something I necessarily need to worry about.
Exactly. Yep. That's what we're hoping for, is that we can all see this as part of the Upper Valley community, and in this case, Vermont and New Hampshire, in that we're going on trails that are, it does mean, and I think I may not have mentioned this when I described the website, but it means that there are some trails that aren't on there because we haven't gotten permission to put them on there yet. And so, just as an example, we're still in the process of working with New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire, to put all of the New Hampshire state parks on. That'll be happening over the course of the next several months. And then there are some trails that are even local that people use, where they, for a variety of reasons, people chose not to put them up publicly. Sometimes they are up publicly on other sites, even though they would like for them not to be. There are trails in this area that are just sort of neighborhood trails, and people want to keep it that way. And then sometimes people don't want to spread the word too much because they're worried that there will be too many. Our theory is that if everybody puts their trails up and we don't rank them, as I said before, that we don't want to do, and we spread the word, that people will spread out across the trails naturally, which we think is incredibly important. And if we can spread the wealth across the area, and if people can focus more locally, it's not only good during the COVID period, it's good just in general. And unless you're someone who's just amazing and has a lot of time on your hands, you're not going to generally be going a lot to, from this particular area, you're not going to be going a lot to the whites and the greens. Maybe on the weekends, you know, maybe some people are doing longer treks. You're going to be going on the trails that are closest to your house. And so you want to know where all those are. And hopefully you can encourage people that, if they're not on Trail Finder, to get them up on Trail Finder again, so everybody can have access, all socioeconomic levels, understanding that there's this, that we want to spread the wealth. We want to spread the benefit to everybody.
Yeah, I honestly, this is such a great resource. And even for us here at Hanover Adventure Tours, I mean, we could see, you know, there's these routes we've been discovering, but we want to focus locally. We're not looking to go all the way, you know, to the White Mountains. You know, we're really staying locally and you know, connecting with any locals that are here and any visiting guests to know that, hey, there are places to go right here in the Upper Valley. And I think even the Upper Valley Trails Alliance and the Trail Finder website can definitely help us to find those places.
Well, yeah, and as we had said, Jane, and this goes for anybody who's on the call, encouraging people to get their trails up on Trail Finder, but also there's an opportunity to create a route. And if it's an established route, I had mentioned to Jane that if they have routes that they want to share out to people, and you can become the trail manager for that route, as long as it's approved, any properties that you're crossing, as long as it's established, including if it were partly a bike route that was on the road, then you could put that up on Trail Finder, and it could be, and you'd be the trail manager in that sense. They'd be checking in with you. So whether that makes sense or not is up to you folks, but it's an option. We want to get as many people out and knowing the good routes and knowing ways that they can get out and be active. So whatever the way that is.
Yeah, and it's funny because even Aaron, who when you were having a few technical difficulties with the Wi-Fi, he did ask about the 70 trails, and I think that would be a great way for bike riding to kind of put that out there and to say, hey, this is what we've kind of come up with, and you know, of course, check everything possible, but would love to put it out there.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a question from Nancy. Nancy, thank you for that question about VAST. And I will tell you that I actually worked I was the head of the Vermont Trails and Greenways Council for the state of Vermont, and you may know that that's a group that works with the state to try and advocate for trails across the whole state, and especially with nonprofits like us. And so I was lucky enough to work with Cindy, who's the head of VAST, on that committee. And we talked a fair amount about trying to get VAST to consider putting their trails on Trail Finder. And so far they've chosen not to. And there really are two reasons for that. One is because, as you probably know, is for a long time they were selling maps, and also they had their own maps that were partly tied into their website. So they wanted to make sure that they had control over them. And they also have very significant concerns in terms of landowners. Many landowners who allow public access to those trails only do so during the winter. That's the only time. And they don't want people accessing them off season for other purposes. So that was part of it as well. We're still hoping that we might be able to break that down we were finally able to get some of the ATV. We're starting to get a few ATV trails up, and we're hoping to get more, but that's, we really would love to see it, to see more. And we think we can at least get some of the towns who have some of the snowmobile trails, because we think it's such an incredible resource. It's the biggest trail system in the state of Vermont. It's the biggest trail system in the state of New Hampshire are the snowmobile trails. So we would love to get more up there.
Awesome. And maybe some fat e-biking too. That's something a little different. And we haven't even been able to, really get into that, but that's something that we're kind of building those trails and those not building them, but the routes, and trying to figure out where we can go for fat tire biking in the winter. I think it's a different type of sport. I've seen a lot of hunters using the fat e-bikes too.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea that and there's pretty good evidence. I mean, some people think that it does more damage to the trails when you're on bikes, but it's a narrower path even than a hiker is. So in some ways it's greater in some ways and less in others. So we're not as concerned about that, but it is true that a lot of times, especially the class 4, class 5 roads in New Hampshire and Vermont, they have somewhat different designations in both states, but sort of the gravel opportunities. And there are a lot of those out there, and many of them are just fully accessible to anything that can actually handle it. So some of them are in incredibly poor shape, but some of them are actually in really good shape. So it depends on what you can and can't do. But especially fat bikes in the winter, we're always encouraging people to use the trails in the winter as much as possible, because it's the lowest impact time. You don't damage trails, you don't cause erosion problems. It's just like the more the merrier, the more opportunity you can get out to be out there is great. That's one of the reasons that the vast trails, sometimes a vast trail which getting back to the snowmobile, will go across a wetland because it'll freeze and then snow over, but it's not something that could sustain trails during the summer, or especially during the spring. So.
Right. That's interesting. And yeah, for us, I mean, why we're so excited for the e-biking aspect for fat bikes is I think it always is hard to get a start with the snow and the covering and everything. So like the e-bike component really makes it like, boom, like you're going, and it helps with the traction, like the traction from, the snow and everything. It's really not causing the erosion or just the damage you may think. It actually is easier. Yeah.
No, yeah, and again, there's I mean, they're usually funded, frankly, by bicycle companies, but or by people who are interested in this. But it is true that there's pretty good evidence that the impact isn't necessarily great. Certainly on inclines, especially, and somewhat on declines, it can cause some increase in erosion issues. But anytime, the main thing is, and bikers have gotten great about this, is that the mountain bike trail managers are better than almost anybody at knowing when they need to shut down their trails. So the main thing is, when a trail is wet, and around here it's mud season a lot of times during the spring, you need to shut down your trail. And that's not just for bikers, that's for hikers too. You can easily damage and widen and cause issues of erosion for a trail, especially in the spring and mud season around here. So, but I've been very impressed with most of the biking trail managers around here. They totally get it. They know that it's going to lead to ridiculous hours of repair and maintenance, and they don't want to do that, and they want to preserve the trails, and so they will shut it down when it needs to be shut down. And in fact, they're using an app often that many people may have heard of called Trail Forks often, and that's one of the ways that it'll even send a notification to your phone and just, this trail shut down. We have the ability to shut it down as well, but you have to go to the website to be able to see it. But so you can put it up or take it down on Trail Finder as well. Yeah,
that's good to know, because honestly, sometimes these trails, especially during the mud season, like you can't walk on them, like you can't do anything. I mean, you're gonna stink. No, I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, and there are trails that are better for that than others, and certainly, there are a bunch that are just drain really well, or they're a little bit, depending on where they are, in a flat area. So you can, and we try to put some of that information out there through our newsletter and through the newspaper during the season. But it is true, in general, you want to try and go on harder packed stuff, or it's a good time to get biking in and being on roads and on, really firm dirt roads, and just really watch it, because it really can cause a fair amount of damage. But it's also a time when people can help us get out there and clear those drainages and get the trails in better shape, so that we'll have less problem, in the future.
Yeah, and going on to that too, just with volunteering somewhat. Now, we kind of talked about kids and what we could do with that, but also, is it just going onto the site, uvtrails.org, and then kind of seeing a button there that says volunteering? How easy is it? Is it just a simple, I know you said there were certain events, so.
Yeah, so the one thing is to certainly, if you, as somebody suggested, which we would absolutely love, you can sign up for the newsletter. It'd be great if you became a member, as I said, but you can also just sign up for the newsletter. That'll provide you information. Also, we publicize pretty heavily in the listservs and in other places about events and things that are going on. But it is true that you really want to be connected directly to the website, and then we will contact you about volunteer opportunities that come up. And we do have volunteer opportunities both during the week and on weekends, but it's fairly common that it'll be a weekday kind of thing, which can be a little bit tough for people. But also, for anybody who's interested, I put, and I can put this out there, you can let Jane know, or put it in if you'd like to contact me, or you can do it through the website as well, and I can send you information. I also will ask people to help me do trail work on almost any weekend, to be honest with you. So there's so much to be done out there, and if somebody's interested, we can usually find something for you to do. If you want to do it on your own, we can make recommendations and provide you with the tools with a little bit of information. If you already have skills, then we can just do that. It's a little bit tougher to do trail work in the winter, as I said, but even then, there's often blowdowns that need to be cleared and things that need to keep the pathways open, because this time of year, I can almost guarantee you this storm is going to bring down a lot of branches. So I'll probably be clearing stuff out over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just curious, I know I think it's so awesome with being a member, you kind of have that tool shed to use whenever you'd like. Is it okay to, take one of those tools and go on the trail and make anything, or like if something were to happen on the trail, can I do that myself? Is that okay?
You can. I'd say yes and no. It's a very good idea to know what you're doing, so you obviously don't want to reroute or do something else. Also, just as an example, I help with the AT, but I'm not official maintainer. But I am in communication with the maintainer of the AT near us. So whenever I do something, I communicate with that person, because I can increase their work or create a problem if I do something that they're not going to do. So you do generally want to make sure, obviously you want to have permission of the trail manager and say, hey, it looks like this needs to be cleared out. I have the skills and the ability to do that. Is that okay? So I will communicate with trail managers, let them know, because sometimes what'll happen, and I've done this once or twice, and I've learned my lesson, is I've gone out and cleared a blowdown. It was one that a trail manager was worried about but couldn't get to it, and then that person went out after me to try and clear it down, and it was already cleared. So they might have had to hike, 3 miles in, so they might have wasted an hour and a half that they didn't need to waste because I had already done it, but but by not communicating with them, I had created a problem for them. So yes, you're right, Jane. You generally don't want to do it just, without a combination of permission and certainly training and awareness. Some of the tools are dangerous. I'm sort of famous in the Trails Alliance for hurting myself sometimes, but it is true that you want to know what you're doing. So.
Yeah. That would be me, definitely. I would probably hurt myself, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because on the Appalachian Trail, I did through hike as well, and through any of that hike, you do get like a trail name.
Yeah.
My trail name became Calamity. So there was some things that I did to get that name.
That's a good name. I like that. Yeah.
I like it, but I'll tell you the story sometime of how I got it.
Yeah. Well, and one of the most common tools for blowdowns is our saws, obviously. And so, and I only use hand saws, but the hand saws that we have are 500 millimeters. So it's a long saw. It actually folds over, and they are extremely sharp. They're made by a company that makes incredible saws, and you can work not as fast as a chainsaw, but you can work fast. It's very light. You can carry it into the woods, but you definitely want to know what you're doing. And the other thing is it's easy to get a saw pinched, and anyway, there's a bunch of things. It's good to know, and we'd be happy to show people. But then, yes, especially during COVID times, you can go out and do some work on your own, and that may be great, if you can do that.
Yeah. Well, I know that Hanover Adventure Tours, when things start to calm down with the pandemic, we'd love to maybe us as a group go out and do some trail maintenance if possible, do some volunteering, and just be part of the community in any way too.
Yeah, and that we definitely can do that. In fact, we even do sort of we can do even sort of leadership training, bonding things, and things like that too. But we mostly we're looking for cheap labor, which means free. And so anybody who's willing to volunteer, and you can just feel better because you're actually making a big difference too. And I've told our high school trail corps before, in one day, a high school trail corps can get done what it would take me a week to 2 weeks to do by myself. And so that kind of, having 5 people who come out, like I've built a bridge by myself, and that will take me multiple days. If we have the materials ready, we can build a bridge in hours with a crew. And so it's a huge difference. Most of the trails in the United States, but certainly a lot of the trails around here, would literally not exist without volunteer labor. And so it's incredibly important, and we're definitely looking for volunteers.
Well, and I honestly think it would be so rewarding to know that you come back to the trail that you've worked on, and to say, well, I did, I helped.
Oh yeah. Usually at least, exactly, Janie, usually at least every trail project, I try and encourage the kids to make one stone feature, sometimes necessary, sometimes unnecessary. So it'll either be a couple of steps or a step across a stream. And part of what we teach them is how to move very, very large rocks, because the rocks need to stay in place for a long time. So 200-pound teenagers can move a 500-pound rock with a rock bar. And so they learn how to do that, and then they'll put that rock in place. And it's incredible, the kind of sense of pride that comes from that kind of accomplishment. And then I'll tell them, if you bring your family out here, not only next year, or later this year, but even 20 years from now, that will probably still be there. And so that it's an exciting thing, and it gives students a real sense of accomplishment, and it makes a difference because it makes the trail more sustainable. So
yeah, lots of growth there as well. And
right.
And interesting enough, with I think it was the Hanover Poor Farm, I had no idea about that, but I'll be researching that after.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really know either. That used to be a fairly common thing. So when people it was a combination of having problems, or when families broke up, or when a family member died, particularly the husband, it would create a situation where people basically needed to be. It was basically a social welfare system, and it's pretty fascinating. It was you should definitely look it up. And one thing, that's a great way. That's a sort of a form of geocaching. You can actually go out and hike the Trescott trails, and look for the panel that the Hanover Conservancy put up. It's actually a beautiful panel made out of, that is very well done. That is a panel that describes the Poor Farm. So that could be your activity. Yeah.
Can I still do it in the winter?
In fact, you can. And also, since you mentioned the fat bikes, the Trescott Trail System is one of the trail systems in this area that is multi-use, where both biking and hiking is fully encouraged, and cross-country skiing and snowshoeing too. So those are trails where you could take your fat bike out and you could look for the poor farm marker. So.
I would love that. Isn't that where the reservoir is?
Yes, exactly. And so that's, for a long time, it was closed down and it was not allowed. People weren't allowed to go on the lands, but it's one of those classic cases where combination of Dartmouth students and local folks went anyway. And so at some point, it's owned by a combination of the town of Hanover and Dartmouth College, the land and the reservoir, and it is the primary reservoir for Hanover. And they decided very tentatively to open up the lands to make it possible to have trails on there. And then people cheated and did things like stick kayaks in the water and try fishing and stuff, which was strictly forbidden because of the reservoir. And so they shut it down again. And the Trails Alliance, along with a bunch of other partners, including Dartmouth Outdoor Club and other people, got together and formed a committee. And thankfully, the combination of the town and the college and the board of the water supply lands agreed to open it back up. And then not only did they do that, but they actually invested in developing a whole trail plan. And that plan has been implemented over the last couple of years. So there are some great mountain biking trails that even some snakebacks, they actually put in a pump track over there. I think it was this past summer. So it's an amazing resource. It's like a giant city park for Hanover. And yeah, you should, if you haven't been out there, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, I tried some mountain biking there, and it was very exciting. And I think I learned, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that used to be like the Hanover's like local farmland, and like there used to be where the townspeople back in the day would use that area for their farm work. And I could be wrong. But
no, that's part of the reason the Hanover the poor farm is part of what probably makes you think about that. But yes, it was a series of farms, that whole area. Yep, that's right.
Okay, great.
Yeah, great land, great property.
Yeah, a lot of great land and a lot of great property all here in the Upper Valley, honestly.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. But that's an example of a place it's public, but it's privately owned. And in that case, it's partially publicly owned, I guess, because the town too. But it was very protected and closed off and not permitted. And it's a shared use property. So it is the part of the way they helped to fund the maintenance of the land was that they and this is very common here, is they forested. So they would forest certain areas, sell the wood, and then that helped to fund the property and keep it going. And one of the things that they've discovered is that there are pros and cons to forestry in terms of the demands that it puts on the land. And so part of what ended up happening was they were willing to compromise and think about ways to combine forestry with outdoor recreation, then of course with the primary objective, which is to provide the reservoir. But so we do have some challenges every once in a while. This past summer, they did a major cutting to be able to, again, forest, because that's part of what the property does. And it sort of devastates a trail temporarily. So we have to then go in and make sure we clear it back out, make sure the lines are clear, make sure it's still well marked, and get it open again. Yeah. But we've been able to cooperate, and it's part of the alliance concept for us. And to make it so that can stay open and continue to function. So
yeah, that's good. It's good to be able to stay updated and know that. Even like I know I'd heard about Pine Park, and I think that's privately owned though with Dartmouth. But the trees there was some type of disease that had hit, and I mean there was so much trees knocked down because I think just one tree touching another completely like would destroy it.
Yeah.
Those are like 200-year-old pines.
Yeah.
Either. Yeah.
No, there are a couple of real very problematic tree issues. The ash borer is one of the biggest concerns for this area, and in fact, all the towns are being encouraged to having an ash plan because of what you're talking about, because it's going to kill pretty much all of the ash. So if you're not ready for it, you could end up with a pretty big problem. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, all different types of trees that we may see on the trails, they'll probably change in the 100 years to come because they're there for a reason. So,
yep, that's right.
Yeah.
There are many beautiful, very large trees out there. It's one of the other things to explore and look for, but that kind of observation and looking at something we're always encouraging with our students. I don't know my trees as well as I'd like, but I'm trying to learn. So wildflowers, trees, mosses, everything. It's just, again, it's partly during this COVID period, just having more time out there and really taking it in is something that can be very exciting. So.
It definitely is. It definitely is for me. But, well, I think we've had a great talk here. Randy, if you're ready to kind of close this up, I think we can say thank you. I thought this was a great talk, honestly. I think there was so much that we learned just about Trailfinder, about the Upper Valley Trails Alliance, and then just great conversations overall and questions and resources and how we can really get involved in any way possible. I think the volunteering options are important here, and I think it's a way to connect with the community in any way. And I really thank you for joining us.
Yeah, well, you guys are an example of a local business that's combining, business opportunity with, again, economic development for this area and just getting more people outside. So you're an example of the kind of partner we want to work with. And again, we are easy that way. We will work with just about anybody, and we're excited to be doing it. So you guys are one more great option in the area. And you came in at a tough time right in the middle of COVID, but you're making it work. So that's exciting. And we would love to be working with you guys if you volunteer and get outside, or helping to put tracks on Trailfinder, or just encouraging folks to get outside as you are with the talk like this. So, and I would love to, anybody who's not a member of the Trails Alliance who attended, please jump on the site and sign up for a newsletter. Or, again, just come out for an event, or, come out for a volunteer opportunity. But most importantly, I just hope everybody's getting outside now. And if you're not doing it, just find some time every day. And if you're doing it, great. But if you're not, start with 10 minutes, start with 15 minutes. And it can literally just be, right out if you have a place near your house. But people will talk about the fact that they don't. But as I said, it could literally even be just walking up and down your road if you need to start that way. So even that, getting a combination of the vitamin D and seeing the trees and, getting connected to the outdoors a little bit, but also just being active. So I hope you do that. I hope Trailfinder might be a way to help you find some trails. And again, let us know if there's any that you suggest that we try and get up there. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And what we'll do after this is recorded, like I said. So after it downloads, there'll be an email that goes out to everyone, and you'll be able to watch this again if you want on the YouTube channel. And then also I'll have a link for the Upper Valley Trails Alliance, Trailfinder, and ways to volunteer also. So really excited to get into that. And this is a great talk. Enjoyed it. And we do these talks every Thursday. Now I know the holidays are coming up, so there's not going to be something going on for the next couple of weeks, but we'll keep on doing things like this, and just want to connect in every way that we can. And Randy, this was honestly amazing. I would love to even go on a hike sometime.
Well, that'd be great, and that's true for anybody. I'm always excited. Usually I'm out with my two dogs at the same time, so we'd love to be out there. And thank you to you, James, for your patience with the technological issues, but luckily I was able to jump on another Wi-Fi, so thank you. And and good luck with everything on your end too, and hopefully we'll get outdoors together over the course of the next year.
Yeah, definitely come and try an e-bike, fatty.
Yeah. I'm just worried that I'll like it too much and then I'd get in big trouble if I got one. But yes, that's it. I would love to try one. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for coming, and have a good night. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye.